Hey guys, so here we have the grade 12 Maths Literacy Paper 1 from November 2022. It is 150 marks and 3 hours long. If you want the paper, just check the description where you can download it. On the screen you can see all the questions that we're going to do, but I'm going to split the questions up into individual parts so that so we have a bit more space and it looks more clear. Okay, so those are all the questions. If you can see that nice and clearly, maybe you want to pause and just do all the questions, but I'm going to start with the individual questions. So here we go. Now we can see everything a lot more clear. So question 1. Let's try to understand exactly what's happening here. It says that Martha needs to buy uniforms for her son and daughter. She compares the prices of 3 shops. Okay, so do you understand that? We've got someone called Martha who's going to buy school uniforms for her children. There's 3 different shops that she's looking at. Shop A, Shop B, and Shop C. Okay? At the shop you can buy different things like a white shirt, a grey skirt. I'm not going to go through all of them, but do you understand the bigger picture that this is a person going to the shops to buy school uniforms, and there's 3 different shops that they are looking at, and we're going to be asked questions about all of this. So the first one says, identify whether the prices given in table 1, so this is table 1 above, are numerical or categorical. Okay, so the prices, let's have a look at the prices. The prices are numbers. Can you see that prices are all numbers? Okay, so that's going to be numerical because numerical means numbers. If it was categories, it would be names. It would be names over here. It would be like Mercedes-Benz or different things like that. It wouldn't be numbers. Okay, so this is the correct answer, numerical. The next question, arrange in ascending. Okay, do you know what ascending means? Let me write it down for you. Ascending is when you go up, so from small to big. Small to big. If it was descending, then you go down, so that's going from big to small. Okay, so they said arrange in ascending order all of the prices for store B. Okay, so store B is this one over here. So we're going to go from small to big. So what's the smallest that we can see? Well, the smallest would be this one here, $11.99. So we're going to go $11.99. Okay, it's a bit weird that there's a comma because we're going to have to use commas to separate them. Okay, let's separate them with semicolons, whatever. Okay, so that one's done. The next smallest one would be $18.99. Okay, so you done. Thank you. 18. Let me just write that a bit better. $18.99. Next one. So this is pretty straightforward, right? $39.99 and $44.99. $44.99. What's next? $54.99. $54.99. And $159.99. And then the last one is $169.99. The next question, so this one over here, says name the store that sells the cheapest grey shorts. So we go to grey shorts, which is this one over here. Okay, so it's only going to be this big block that we're looking at. Okay, so for a pair of grey shorts, store B is the cheapest, 39 Rand and 99. So name the store. That's going to be store B. For this question, it says calculate the price for a pack of white school socks at store C. So store C is this block over here, and they would like us to know for a pack of white school socks. So white school socks is over here. Okay, so the current price is 85 Rand 99 for 5 packs, but they want to know what the price is for 1 pack. Okay, so then you're just going to say 85,99, and you're just going to divide that by 5. Okay, and if you had to go do that, you're going to end up with 17,198. But obviously, this needs to be rounded to 2 decimal places, so then you can say 17,20. So it's 17 Rand 20 per pack. Okay, so here's the next question. Determine the missing value P if Martha bought all of her items at store A. Okay, so let's say, for example, she only went to store A, so we can scratch all of that out. So it says determine the missing value P. So what is P? P is the total. Okay, so we're literally just going to go add all of these numbers together. Some of you might be like, yeah, but Kevin, what about the VAT and all of that? Guys, if they're not talking about any VAT or anything over here, just ignore it. So you're literally just going to go plus all of these numbers together. Okay, so I'm going to do that so long. Or we should probably write it out. So we can just say 110 plus 163 plus 186 plus 40,50 plus 85 plus 349 plus 318. And if we go add all that up, we get, now it's 1,251 Rand. Now on your calculator it might say comma 5, but we know that cents always has 2, so you just change it to 50. Okay, you just add a little 0 at the end so that you have 2 decimal places. Okay, and then this question says that the probability of selecting store C is 0,333. Let me try explain to you where they got that number, just for your own interest. If you have 1, 2, 3 different shops to choose from, well, what is the chance that you're going to choose this one? Forget about the prices. Let's say the prices were like, let's just forget about that. If you're sitting in your car and there's 3 shops in front of you, well, what is the probability that you would choose to go to this shop? Well, it would be 1 out of 3. And if you had to go type that in your calculator, it is 0,33333, blah, blah, blah. So that's where they're getting that number from. That was just for your own interest if you're interested. So the first question says, define the term probability in the given context. So what does probability mean? It is the chance. You could also change that word to whoopsie. I don't even know how to spell likelihood. Likelihood. Like that? Oh no, that's embarrassing. I went and did a little quick Google search and I was a bit wrong there. It's likelihood. I've actually never written that word in my life. It's a weird word. Likelihood. I think I'm going to call my kid that one day. Hey, likelihood. Okay, no, that's stupid. Okay, so the chance or likelihood of choosing shop C or store C. Okay, why am I saying store C? Well, it's because they said the probability of choosing store C, and they said give the definition or define the term in the given context. So it's the chance of choosing store C. Okay, last question. Write down this probability as a percentage. Okay, so if you want, you can just go write this on your calculator. Okay, 0,33333, blah, 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 blah. Now, to convert from a decimal to a percentage, so to go from a decimal to a percentage, all that you do is you just multiply the number by 100. Okay, and then if you had to go from a percentage to a decimal, then you would divide by 100. So you're just going to multiply this number by 100, and they said round it to the nearest whole number. Okay, so if you had to go type it, sorry, come on Kev, get your thoughts together. So if you had to say 0,33, sorry guys, I was getting a bit nervous there. Okay, no, that was a joke. But yeah, stumbling on my words. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oh no, I lost count. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we all have enough time to go write out 10 threes in an exam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then multiply that by 100, and you should get 33,33333, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you had to, and then percentage, of course. Now, if you had to round that to the nearest number, you could either round it to 33, okay? That's a whole number. Or you could round it up to 34. Now, you need to decide which one it is. And no, you can't just choose whichever one you feel like. We got to go to the nearest one. So the number 33 is, well, the number 33,333 is closer to 33 than it is to 34. For example, if I showed you on a number line, this is 33 and this is 34. In between that, okay, I'm going to run out of space. Let's say here's 33 and here's 34. Now in between that, you're going to get 33,1, 33,2, 33,3, 33,4. Okay, give me a second. So 33, and then 33,1, 33,2, 33,3, 33,4, 33,5, 33,6, 37. Whoa, where did 38 come from, bro? 33,8, 33,9, and then it would just go to 34. Okay, so if we have 33,33333, we're sort of in this area over here. So we're closer to 33 than we are to 34. Okay, so the answer would be 33, and then just remember to say percent. Here are all the questions that we are going to do in this question, but I'm going to break it up onto individual pages just so that it's better and easier for us to work with, okay? But for those of you that maybe want to do the whole question at once, then there it is. Have fun. So let's start with these questions. So it says, what I like to always do is I just ignore this for now, and I like to really get a nice understanding of what this is all about. Okay, so it says one of the many investment options in South Africa is the stokvel option. Table 2 shows 2 stokvel plans. I feel cringy when I'm saying this word. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Stokvel. Okay, stokvel, I don't know. Plans A and B over a 24-month period. Okay, so we've got these 2 like investment plans, and one of them is Plan A, and one of them is Plan B. This one for Plan A is a monthly plan. So you pay. So let's see. You're going to save up for 24 months in both of them. In this one, you choose to save a certain amount per month. So you're going to save 2,500 Rand every month, and this is the total amount of money that you would have at the end of 24 months. Okay? Hope that you understand that one. The other option is that you don't pay every month, but what you rather do is you just make a once-off payment of 60,000 Rand. Okay? So you see the difference between the 2 options. In this option, you pay every month. In this option, you rather just pay once. You just give them 60,000 Rand once. Okay? And then at the end of the 2 years, or the 24 months, this one will be worth 74,000 Rand, and a little bit more than 74,000, and this one will be worth 92,000. The first question, define investment in the given context. Okay, so an investment is any form of savings that results in interest. So what do they mean by that? Now, you could save money, right? So you could let's say for example, you have a job one day and you get paid. You could take that money and you could put it under your pillow where you sleep. And that would be called saving, because you would be saving money, right? The amount of money would become more. But if you save 5,000 Rand, then guess what? When you go back to your pillow in 1 year and you lift your pillow up, how much do you think will be there? Well, it's not a trick question. It's going to be 5,000 Rand. However, if you rather put it... Now, that is called saving. That's proper saving. But what if you put it into an investment? Well, what happens then is you give your 5,000 Rand, for example, to a specific place, like a bank or a special company that specializes in investing your money. So you give them 5,000, and then if you go back 1 year later and you ask them, yo, brothers or sisters, I gave you 5,000 Rand. How much is it worth now? And normally, if everything's gone okay and they haven't gone bankrupt and they're not some type of scam, your money typically has gone up. Maybe it's now worth 6,000 Rand. You see, so that's an investment. It's because you're saving, just like you would if you put it under your pillow, but you're earning interest. And that's the difference, okay? So that's what an investment is. It's saving, but with the extra bonus of interest. Okay, so that was a really long talk by me. So define investment, we've done that. Fantastic. Next question. Calculate the total contributions for Plan A. So what do they mean by that? Well, what they mean is you're going to be doing this for 24 months, and every month you're going to be giving them 2,500 Rand. So to work out the total amount of money that you would give them, you're going to say 2,500, and you're just going to say times 24. I mean, you could say 2,500 plus 2,500 plus 2,500 plus 2,500, and you could do that 24 times, but that's just going to take quite long. So rather do 2,500 times, see how I said the word times? Okay, no, I'm going into like some weird theory stuff now that I like to sometimes explain to students. I'm trying to explain where multiplication was actually let me stop. Some of you are like, Kevin, what? bro. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I have a test tomorrow. What are you going on about, dude? It's simple. 2,500 multiplied by 24. Sorry, guys. I sometimes go into these weird little tangents, side stories. Okay, so that's going to give us a total of 60,000 rand. Okay. Geez, the way I was mumbling my words now is the way I talk when I'm on a first date. It just does not flow at all, and it's super awkward. Okay, so there, 60,000 rand. Okay, so you see, okay, I see what these guys are doing now. Okay, so you could either do 2,500 rand for 24 months. It's also going to be 60,000 rand, or you could just decide to give them 60,000 rand in the very beginning. Okay, that's the difference. Let's go to the next part. I'm still feeling a bit awkward. Okay, but I think it's getting better now. I think most of you are forgetting about my bad jokes and everything. Okay, let's move on, Kev. So it says calculate the interest earned. Some of you must think I'm actually pretty crazy. I think I actually am, though, to be honest. So it's probably okay. So it says here, calculate the interest earned if a person invests in Plan B. So guys, remember what interest is. Remember how I was speaking earlier about if you put money under your pillow? So let's say this is your pillow. Now, I'm not a person who's really good at drawing. Like, who sleeps on a rectangular pillow? Like, bro, you're sleeping on bricks. So there's a pillow, right? And if you had to put 5,000 rand under your pillow, if you had to come back to your pillow in 1 year's time and you had to look under your pillow, guess how much money you would have? 5,000 rand. But so the interest over here would be equal to 0. Okay, interest is like the bonus. It's like the reward. So they're saying here, calculate the interest or the reward if a person invests in Plan B. So check here. They're taking 60,000 rand. So that's like how much money they're giving. At the end, look how much it's worth. Ooh, so do you think you know how we could work out the reward or the interest? Well, the interest would be you just subtract those two numbers. So it's 92065,71 minus 60,000 rand. Just put a little rand there, and that would give us 32,065,71. So that is the reward or the bonus that this person earned over 2 years. That's actually quite a good investment, to be honest. If any of you know about investments, a good investment would give you like maybe 10% per year. That's considered to be fairly good. So if you had to earn 10%, okay, I'm going on a little side story now, but this should only get to about maybe 74,000 rand, maybe 75,000 rand over 2 years. But this investment is going all the way up to 92,000 rand. So yeah, if someone finds something like this, let me know. That's really good. Okay, so that's the answer. The next question, this one over here, it says determine how much more interest a person will earn if they invest in B compared to if they invest in A. So they want to know how much more reward does this person get. So how much reward does this person get? Well, we already worked it out. They're going to make 32,000 rand. Okay, let's think about this one. So we know that this one, the person also gives away 60,000 rand. Right? We worked it out in the earlier question. 2,500 multiplied by 24. But look how much it becomes after 2 years. That's not so great. I mean, not compared to that one, of course. So let's quickly work out how much interest they earn in option or Plan A. So interest for Plan A. So you're going to say 74,286,84. And you're going to subtract the original starting amount, 60,000. And so this person, if you choose that option, your reward or your interest, if you want to be technical here, is 14,000. So they said, how much more interest does the person in Plan B? So Plan B earns this much. Plan A earns that much. So you need to subtract those two numbers to see how much more. So you could say 32,065,71 subtract 14,286,84, and that gives us 17,778,87. Okay, so that is the answer for that question. Now, I know some of you might be like, Kev, my bro, why are you doing it in such a long way? And I only realized this afterwards. You can, if you wanted to, just subtract these two numbers here. That would also give you the exact same answer. Okay, so if you did that, absolutely perfect. You will get to the same answer. The first thing I want to let you know is that these are not the only questions. It's not only these two over here. There are going to be more questions. I just couldn't fit them all onto one page. Shall we begin? Okay, so it says, the graph below shows in cents per litre the prices of 3 types of fuel in Gauteng for the first 3 months of 2022. So let's get a really good understanding of what's happening here. So what we have, okay, is in January 2022, they are showing you the price, cents per litre, okay, of diesel, 93. You know, when you go to the petrol station, sometimes your parents are like, can I get 93 unleaded or 95, or sometimes they get diesel. So these are 3 different types of fuel that you can put into your car, okay? And so when you get to the petrol station, whichever one you feel like putting in, you just choose one. Okay, no, that was a joke. If your car is a diesel, put diesel. If you have a petrol car, use petrol. Otherwise, you're going to have some big problems. Okay, so that's what they're showing us. Now, why are these petrol prices so high? Aren't the petrol prices in South Africa like 20 Rand per litre? Well, the reason is that they're showing it in cents per litre. So this is actually 20 Rand, this is 25 Rand, 15 Rand, 10 Rand. Okay, so you see that the prices are actually just shown in cents instead of in Rand. Okay, right. Then obviously they also show us in February, and then they also show us in March. Okay, you got it? So, the first question says, name the type of graph drawn. Okay, so whenever there's gaps in between like this, you see there's these spaces in between, then we definitely know it's a bar graph, okay? But that's not the only answer that they want. Because they're also showing multiple groups together, okay, then you've got to add another little word here. Now, you could add the word compound. You could add the word a triple, because there's 3 of them in each thing. Some other words that you could use would be clustered, or the word grouped, for example. So you could choose one of those and then just say bar graph. The next question says, over here, it says, identify the type of fuel that costs the most in February. Okay, so we're going to go to February, so we're not going to look at that, and we're not going to look at that. And they said identify the type that costs the most. Okay, now, does anyone have a magnifying glass? Geez, like, okay, so are those... I'm just joking. I think it's should be clear to see that that one is higher, but I mean, wow, they could have made it a little bit more of a gap. But anyways, so it's going to be this one. Now, that one is called 95 ULP. So we're just going to say 95 ULP. Of course, you could be fancy and use the key that they've given you here, and you could say 95 unleaded petrol. Okay, so here's our next question. So it says the price of diesel in March 2022. Let's go check if they're being correct here. So in March 2022, so that's this one. The diesel, which is the little dotted ones, that's this one. They're saying the price was about 1,955. So if we look, yeah, they are being correct. Okay, so that's how much cents you had to pay per liter. It says, write this price in Rand, and then round your answer to the nearest 0.50. Okay, so forget about that part for now. Let's just go write the answer in Rand. So we know that there is 100 cents in 1 Rand. Okay, so if they give us the cents, then to get the Rand, you're going to have to divide by 100. Okay, so if we're going to go come on, Kev, 1955,28, you're going to have to divide that by 100. And what that's going to give you is 19,5528 Rand. But now we need to round that off to the nearest 50 cents. So that could go to 19 Rand 50. Okay, or you could go, I'll give you some options. You could round that to 19 Rand, for example, or you could round it up to 20 Rand. So you got to try to think about which one is closest. Okay, which one is closest? Is 19 Rand 50 closest? Is 19 Rand closest? Or is 20 Rand closest to this number? Well done if you realize that 19 Rand 55 is extremely close to 19 Rand 50. I'll show you on a timeline. If you have 19 Rand over here, then 20 Rand over there, well, in the middle would be 19 Rand 50. Then 19,55 would be just over there. And yeah, so we can see that these two are very close to each other. So there's our answer, 19 Rand 50. And then you should say Rand and then per litre. Okay, so here is a question that says Annexure A shows a summary. Okay, so obviously I'll show you Annexure A in a few seconds. The word annexure is weird. Annexure. Annexure, my word, does not sound the way it looks. Annexure. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop there. Annexure A shows a summary of Bomvana's vehicle and household insurance policy. Okay, so these are all the questions that we're going to do, but let's go break it up nicely into individual questions. Okay, so here is Annexure A, okay, that you would be given in an exam. And what they're saying here is use Annexure A to answer the questions. Okay, so write down the policy number. That's the first question. Write down the policy number. So the policy number, you can find it over here. And so that is 233888350. Okay, 233888350. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. It says determine the missing value A, which is the monthly premium of the VW Polo. Okay, so I've zoomed in a little bit just so you can try give this some thought. Now, it's going to be quite easy for us to determine what the monthly premium will be, because you see at the bottom they gave us the total, 2184,21. How did they get that? Well, they get that by putting all of these numbers that you can see in the premium column, they just add all of them together. Some of them are negative, so just be careful there, the bottom numbers are negative. But if you had to go add all of that together, you should end up getting 2184,21. So we know that if you take the 7 Rand and 16 cents, let's actually write it up here. If you take the 7 Rand and 16 cents and you add that to the 200,41 and you add that to the 520,41 and you add that to the next number, which is 133,16. You add that to the A, which we don't know, okay? And then you add that to the 201,79 and the 23,30 and the 9 Rand and 7 cents. And then you're going to say minus the 266 because that is a discount. Then what should your total be? Well, your total should be 2,184,21. Okay, so what I think we should do is just go put all of these numbers on the left side, just go put all of them together, except A. Of course you can't do A, but all the other numbers, just go type it on your calculator. So just say 7.16 plus 200,41 plus 520,41 plus 133.16 plus 201.79 plus 23.30 plus 9.07. Remember the negative for 266.15. And that should give us, if you've done that correctly, I hope I've done it correctly, 829,15. Okay? And then you still have this little a, which we weren't able to do. And that should still be equal to 26. Whoa, what am I saying? 26. Where's the 6 coming from? So that should be equal to 2184,21. Okay, so this number plus another number should be equal to this number. So you got to try to figure out what this number would be. So you can figure this out. Maybe you have your own technique, but what you are eventually going to be doing is you are going to be subtracting the 829,15. And if we do that, we end up with 1,355 Rand. Let me write that a little bit better. 1,355,06 Rand. So that is how much the monthly premium on the VW Polo would be. So I don't know if we're going to have to use this this number, but let's just go put it there. 1,355,06. Okay, so it says Bomfana qualifies for a discount as he has insured many items. Okay, so because this guy has so many items, he's got a accident insurance. He's got he's got like 4 cars. Nice. It's one of those like typical Forex traders. So he's got 4 cars. If it was Forex traders, it would be like Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini. Okay, Kevin, carry on. He's got some type of home insurance. Okay, so because he has so much insurance, the insurance company was really happy with him. So they were like, dude, we're going to give you a discount. Okay, so it says Bomfana qualifies for a discount. Calculate the percentage discount that he received if the total premium was 2,450. So let me make sure that you understand this. Bomfana was supposed to pay this amount. But then the insurance company told him, we will give you a discount of 266 Rand. So your total only has to be 2,184. So they gave him a special price. So what was the total supposed to be? Well, the total was supposed to be 2,450,36. What was the amount that they gave as a discount? Well, that was 266 Rand and 15 cents. So let me ask you this. Let's say you wrote an exam. Okay, so let's say you wrote a class test. What was your class test out of? Let's say your class test was out of, let's say the total was 40. And let's say your result, let's say you earned a point, let's say you got 33. How would you work out your percentage? Well, you would say 33 divided by 40 multiplied by 100. So here we know that the total was supposed to be 2,450. Now out of that total, what was the discount? Well, the discount was 266. So let's see what that is. Oh, and then we should say multiplied by 100 as a percentage. And let's go type that all in on our calculator. Remember to say times 100. And then if we round that to 2 decimal places, you should get 10.86%. So they gave Bomfana a discount of 10.86%. Here's the next question. So it says that Bomfana was involved in a motor vehicle accident in July 2022. The quotation for the damages from the panel beater was 43,000. Okay, so Bomfana crashed his car, and to fix the car, the panel beater said that it's going to cost that amount of money. Determine the amount that the insurance company will pay the panel beaters. Okay, so the way it works in real life, guys, is you have a car. Let's say you have a car, okay, and you crash your car. If you do not have an insurance company, then you have to pay all of this money by yourself. But if you have insurance, then they will pay some of this money for you, and you will only have to pay a small amount. Okay? But remember, to have insurance, you have to pay a small amount every month. So that's the way it works. So let's see. Whenever you have a car, a house, anything that you want to have insured, there's always something called an excess. Now the excess, let me tell you what that is, or let me try make a definition for you. The excess is the amount that you will pay. That is what the excess is. So if you understand me correctly, is it better to have a high excess or a low excess? Well, it's better to have a low excess because then you don't have to pay as much. So, and it even says here, I'm being so silly, I didn't even read this. The excess is the amount payable by you, and they even used capitals like I did. Wow, we're thinking alike. To the service provider. Okay, so let's quickly see where Bomfana would. Okay, so it was not a fire and explosion. It was not an earthquake. Goodness me. Window glass only. Okay, it is probably not going to be a window glass only because he crashed his car. So it's probably going to be more than just the windows. Okay, maybe there's bumpers and things like that. Okay, so it won't be that one. He definitely wasn't involved in theft and hijacking. So he was involved in an accident. Okay, so the amount that he will have to pay is 7,000 rand. So that's how much Bomfana will pay. Bomfana, he will have to pay 7,000 rand. The total amount is this much. So now we can work out how much the insurance company will pay, because Bomfana will only pay 7,000. So the insurance company would pay the difference. So we can say 43,520 minus 7,000, and let's see how much the insurance company will pay. 36,520 rand. That is how much the insurance company will pay. The next question, this one over here, says calculate the amount of VAT that has already been included. Can you see that the VAT is already included? Okay, so we know that the total is 2,184, but that already includes the VAT. Now we need to work out how much is the VAT. Okay, so when I do questions with VAT, I've seen some teachers use some really weird formulas, but you literally just need to know the following. I just want you to remember the number 1.15. Okay, now which number is bigger? Is it when the VAT is already included, or is it when the VAT is not included? Well, the bigger number is always the one where VAT is included. So if you want to take this number and you want to find out how much VAT was charged, then what you can do is you can just divide by 1.15. And if you do that, this isn't the final answer, by the way. That's going to give you 1899,313,043. So what that number is there, that is the amount of money that it was before they added the VAT. And this is how much it is after they added the VAT. So how much VAT did they actually add? Well, you can just subtract these two numbers. So you can just say 2184,21 minus 1899,313,043. And if you had to work that all out, you get 284 rand. 284, and then if you round up to 90. So just use the number 1.15. Sometimes you're going to divide, sometimes you're going to multiply, but you just have to use 1.15. If you want to make the number bigger, so if you want to add the VAT, you must say multiply by 1.15. If you want to take the VAT away, just divide by 1.15. Okay, this question here says the premium, which is the amount that you pay for the Toyota, is much lower than the VW Polo. Well, let's see if they're right. So the Toyota is 520 rand per month. The Polo, it's that amount that we worked out earlier, which was, remember, 1355.06. So they want to know, why is the VW Polo so much more than a Toyota? Okay, now one of the simple reasons is that the Toyota is a 2013 model, whereas the Polo is a 2019 model. Okay, so that's one reason. So what that means is that the Polo is more valuable. It's probably worth more money. Okay, so the insurance company is going to charge you more money in case that one gets into an accident or it gets hijacked or something like that. Another reason is that in South Africa, VW Polos are extremely popular. I mean, Toyota Corollas are also very popular, but VW Polos are extremely popular. So what that means is that they are one of the most hijacked vehicles in South Africa, because the people who do the hijacking, they know that they will easily be able to sell the Polo once they steal it, because there's so much demand for VW Polos. So the insurance companies, they know that the VW Polo is a very high-risk vehicle. It's the number one hijacked vehicle in South Africa. So if you are an insurance company, you're going to be a little bit nervous to have someone who has a VW Polo use your insurance company. So you're going to charge them a little bit more because there's a slightly higher risk. Okay? So let's write down some of the possible answers. You could say that the VW Polo is a newer model. So that means it would be worth more money, right? Okay, so that's the one option. Another option is so you only have to choose one of these. You don't have to write all of them. It's only for 2 marks. You could say that the VW Polo is a high-risk vehicle. And that's where we were talking about the hijacking and all of that. And then another option is that we don't know, maybe this person, Bomvana, these cars, they might not all be his cars. This one might be for his wife, this one might be his, and then the VW Polo might be his younger child, like maybe someone who's like maybe 19 years old. Now, the way that insurance companies work is that they always want to know who is the main driver. You can let other people drive the car, but who's the main driver? Now, if the VW Polo is being driven by the younger son or daughter who's maybe 19 years old, they are always going to have to pay a much higher insurance premium because a younger driver is statistically, don't get all like and angry with me now when I say this, but they've proven it statistically that a younger driver is more likely to be in a car accident than an older driver. Okay, that makes sense. Like someone who's 45 years old, they've got a lot of experience driving, whereas someone who's just come out of high school or university, they are going to be flooring that car down the road after partying one night with their friends, and it's just always a higher risk that there's going to be some type of accident. Okay, there's less experience, and yeah, okay. So that's another reason, is that the driver of the Polo may be much younger than the driver in the Toyota. Okay, so it could be a whole bunch of different reasons. It's probably because the VW is a much newer car. I mean, 2019 versus 2013. That's like a 6-year difference. That's quite a lot. Okay, so let's move on. So this question now says that Bomvana pays a My Home premium for all of his household content to the value of 200,000 Rand. So this is his My Home, okay? And so he's got 200,000 Rands worth of insurance protection, okay? So what they do is they ask Bomvana, how much are the things inside your house? So maybe he has a TV, he has a sound system, he's got another TV, he's got all these things in his house. He's got a lounge, he's got a lounge suite, he's got all these things. He's got kitchen appliances, he's got fridges. Now, maybe something happens to the house. Maybe there's a flood, or there's a earthquake, or there's a fire. You know, they even say it down here. There's a fire, an earthquake. These things can happen, okay? So what people do is they get household insurance so that, or maybe someone breaks into his house and they steal all of his stuff. Then he has insurance. So the insurance company will give him 200,000 Rand if there's a break-in and all of those things get stolen, okay? But to be able to have that protection, he has to pay 201 Rand and 79 cents every single month. Okay? Now, after after the household contents have been evaluated, he goes and buys another lounge suite. So think about that. The insurance company has already told him, listen, dude, for all of the things in your house, it's about 200,000 Rand. We're going to charge you 201 Rand per month. Bomvana then goes and buys another lounge suite. So obviously the things in the house are now going to be more than 200,000 Rand. So think about what the insurance company is going to say. They're going to say, okay, that's fine. You can add another lounge suite, but now everything in your house is no longer worth 200,000 Rand. Now it's worth 210,000 Rand, for example. Maybe the lounge suite was 10,000 Rand. So now you are going to have to pay us a little bit more money every month in order to have all of that protected. Does that make sense, guys? I hope it makes sense. The more things that you want to have protected with insurance, the more money you're going to have to pay the insurance company. That's just basic business, right? Okay, so we could just say something, for example, like his premium will increase as the value of his household items will now be more than 200,000 rand. Because remember, guys, the people at the insurance company, they said we will give you 200,000 rand if the items in your house get stolen, but you have to pay us 201 rand every month. But now his household items is more than 200,000 rand. So if everything in his house gets stolen, then the insurance company maybe has to give him 210,000 rand. So because of that, he's going to have to pay them a little bit more every month. Maybe this is now going to become 215 rand, for example, every single month. Okay, hope that makes sense. So there we go. That's how you would answer that question. The first thing I want to mention is that the questions for this question do carry on. Okay, I've said here questions carry on. So here, for example, we have this question over here, and then on the next slide we have this one, and this one, and this one. Okay, so it looks like 4 questions that we're going to be doing. So let's read and let's try to get a good understanding of what this is all about. Okay, so I'm going to start reading up here. The sanitation tariffs for Johannesburg and Cape Town are presented. Johannesburg uses the area of a property to determine the sanitation bill. Cape Town uses a percentage to determine the sanitation bill. Okay, we'll figure that out, I guess. Table 3 shows the tariffs of Johannesburg and Cape Town. Okay, table blah, 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 blah. So let's try to figure this out, because at the moment I'm like, what? So, okay, so it looks pretty straightforward. Let's say you live in Johannesburg, and let's say you use up to 300 square meters. Oh, okay, because they use the area of the property. Oh, I see. Okay, so because they said here that, because I was wondering why they're using meters squared, but they said here that Johannesburg uses the area of a property. So what they do in Johannesburg is they look at the house that you live in, and they see how big is that house, and they use that, the area. So like, imagine they're flying in an aeroplane, and they're looking at your house from the top. So maybe this is your house from the top, okay? Then they look at the area of that house, and they use that area to determine how much you would pay for sanitation per month. Or they're not really saying if it's per month, per year. I don't think it matters right now. So if you have a house that's anything smaller or including 300 meters squared, then this is how much you would pay. If your house is bigger than 300 but up to 1,000, then this is what you would pay. If your house is between 1,000 and 2,000, you see the larger your house, the more you would pay. That makes sense. And then if your house is larger than 2,000, well, that's how much you would pay over there. Now, in Cape Town, they said they do things a little bit differently. So here they do it depending on how much you use. Now that makes a little bit more sense. So in Cape Town, if you use anywhere between 0 and 4.2 kiloliters of water, then you will pay 16 Rand and 3 cents for every kiloliter. And they're just telling us what this is an increase from the previous. Maybe this was like a previous year, for example. So I don't think this part is too important right now. So for example, in Cape Town, if you use anywhere between 7.35 and 24.5 kiloliters, then you pay 30.92 Rand. That's not how much you pay. That's how much you pay per kiloliter. Okay, so that's the per kiloliter price, and then it just keeps going up. Okay, as I said, these numbers are probably increases from a previous year. Okay. Now, the first question over here says, write down to the nearest 10 cents and excluding VAT. Okay, that's fine because all of these are VAT excluding anyway, so that's okay. And it also says here, excluding VAT, the cost for sanitation in Johannesburg if a property is 175 meters squared. Okay, so if a house is 175 meters squared in Johannesburg, then we're going to look in this table over here. We're not going to look at Cape Town, and we are definitely going to look here because 175 is less than 300. So this says up to and including 300. So that's where we're going to look. And so what do we pay? 228. So whether your house is 250 or whether your house is 180 or whether your house is 290, as long as it's smaller than or including 300, then you are going to pay 228.06. But now they said to the nearest 10 cents. Okay, so let's just write this down so long. So where would the nearest 10 cents be? Well, you could say 228.0, or you could say 228.10. Now, I'm not saying you must choose whichever one you like. Only one of those is correct. So let me say 228 over here, or let me actually say 228. And then let's put 228.10, and then let's put 228.06. So which one is closer to 06? Well, it would go 228.0, which is this one, then 228.01, 228.02, 228.03, 228.04, 228.05, 228.06. So 228.06 is closer to this one. Okay, so we're going to round that to 10. We're now going to be doing this question. So it says calculate the cost for 4.1 kiloliters sanitation in Cape Town before the increase. Okay, so they haven't made this table very clear, but if you spend enough time with this and you just look at it carefully, you would realize that these are the new prices. Okay, so these are the new prices. And then they're saying increase from the previous price. So what was the old price? So they're saying that the increase from the old price was 0.66. So if I made a new column here called old price, then we could work out what the old price is for each of these. So for example, if your current or your new price is 16.03, then if you minus this, so you could say 16.03 minus 0.66, and that would give you 15.37. So that would have been the old price for this category. And of course, we could go do that for all of these. But they said, yeah, calculate the cost for someone who uses 4.1 kiloliters before the increase. So they want the old price. Okay, so let's actually go answer their question now. So we're going to say 16.03 minus 0.66, which would give us 15.37. So that's the old price, which is the price before the increase to this price over here. So we're not using that one. Okay. They should have said something a lot better over here, like for the Cape Town table, they've given us the new price and the old price, but they haven't really said anything. Okay, so we know that that's the price. And what is that the price? Per kiloliter. That's per kiloliter. So they said that this person uses 4.1 kiloliters, and you need to work out how much they would be charged. Well, they're being charged 15 Rand and 37 cents per kiloliter. So if they use 4.1 kiloliters, then you could just say 15.37 multiplied by 4.1, and if you calculate that, then you'll get 63 Rand, and if you round off, you're going to get 2 cents like that. So that's the answer. 63, let me write that a bit better, 63.02. So some of you might have wanted to just use this one, and you would have wanted to multiply that by 4.1, but they said before the increase. So yeah, it's a bit confusing, but I hope you understand that. Next question. Mr. Jones lives in Johannesburg and Mrs. Brown lives in Cape Town. Or Miss Brown, sorry. They both own a property with an area of 550 and each was billed for 22 kiloliters sanitation. Use the table above to determine the difference in the cost for the two properties. Okay, so let's start with Mr. Jones. This is quite a cool question because we have to be quite careful here. So Mr. Jones lives in Johannesburg. So that means we have to use Johannesburg's way of dealing with it. So how big is Mr. Jones's property? Well, it's 550 square meters. So what we do is we go have a look here and we try to think about where would 550 be. Well, this one is only for houses that go from 0 up to 300. So those are houses that are anywhere between 0 and 300. The next row is for houses that are between 300 and 1,000. So Mr. Jones's house would actually be somewhere over there, right? Because his house is 550, and that is somewhere between 300 and 1,000. So how much would Mr. Jones pay? 443 Rand and 96 cents. 443 Rand and 96 cents. That is what Mr. Jones would pay. But we need to be careful. I actually didn't see this at first. Look at this. Here they've got VAT excluding, and here they've got VAT including. So to be able to compare these, we're going to have to add in the VAT for the Mr. Jones or the Johannesburg one. So we know that VAT is, maybe you've heard me say this in previous videos, but whenever we talk about VAT, I just like to remember the magic number 1,15. If we need to add on the VAT, then we just multiply. And if we needed to take VAT away, you just divide. So I just multiply that by 1.15. And that's going to give 510,55 Rand. So that is what Mr. Jones will pay. Now we're going to have a look at Miss Brown. So now Miss Brown, she lives in Cape Town. So we're going to use Cape Town's rule. Now in Cape Town, they don't look at the size of your house. They look at how much water you used. So they both use 22 liters, 22 kiloliters, which is 22,000 liters. Okay, so where would 22 kiloliters be? Well, it won't be there because that's 0 to 4,2. This is 4,2 to 7,35. So it's going to be somewhere inside there, right? Which is 7,35 up to 24,5. So the number 22 is somewhere between there. But what we're going to remember with these tables is we're not going to just say, okay, so we're inside here. The way it works is that you start here. So for the first 4.2 kiloliters that Miss Brown uses, she'll be charged a small amount. So if inside this category, she uses 4,2. So we can say 4,2 multiplied by 16.03. And if we had to work that out, that'll give us 67,33 Rand. Okay, now all of the water that you use from 4.2 up to 7.35. So any water that you use in that category will be charged at 22 Rand, 02 per kiloliter. So how much water are we able to use here? Well, it goes all the way from 4.2 up to 7.35. So how much water is that? Well, that's going to be 3,15. If you subtract these two numbers, that is how much water is inside there. So we could then say that Miss Brown uses 3.15 kiloliters from that category. So we can say 3.15 multiplied by 22,02. And that'll give us 69.36 Rand in that category. Then she uses from 7.35. Now, where do we stop? Well, we stop at 22. So we're going to go from 7.35. Where can I write this? Let's take this away. So we're going to go from 7.35 up to 22. So how much water is that? Well, if you subtract those two values, that gives you 14.65. So she uses 14.65 kiloliters in this category. Okay, so that's going to be 14.65 multiplied. You see, the more water you use, the more you pay. You see that? So we're going to be paying 30,92 Rand. Let's just say here, kiloliters multiplied by 30,92. Sure, that's an expensive one. So 452.98. So the total amount that Miss Brown will pay will be this, and this, and this. So we can add that all together. Total will be 67.33 plus 69. Let me put the symbol. Okay, and if we had to go add that all together, it'll be 589.67. Okay, so Johannesburg's costing system is actually so simple. Geez, Cape Town, it gets really weird. So with Cape Town, you see the way it works is that if you use a little bit of water, they don't charge you too much. But then as soon as you start using more, then they start charging you more per kiloliter. Okay? So we haven't answered the question. It says, use the table above to determine the difference in the cost. So Mr. Jones was 510 and Miss Brown was 589. So the difference is where you minus those two, or subtract, whatever you prefer. 589.67 subtract 510.55. Sorry guys, just need some space over there. Jeez, I felt like I'm using knowledge that I learned from life orientation on how to make friends. Sorry guys, if you're getting too close, then I need to tell you I need space. Okay, that was really lame. Okay, so let's go 79, but I think Alo is pretty weird. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not going to go there, but yeah, I find it quite weird. So 79.12. There we go, and that would be the final answer. For this question, it says, explain how the tariff system used in Johannesburg is beneficial to homeowners. Okay, so let's think about this. If you live in Johannesburg and you own a house, why would this be quite beneficial? Well, what I like about it is that once you know what size house you live in, then no matter how much water you use, they're not going to charge you a penalty. So, for example, if you live in a house that's less than 300 meters squared, whether you use a little bit of water or whether you use a large amount of water, that is what you're going to pay per month, okay? Now, that obviously can be bad because some people can waste a lot of water. But you know how much you're going to pay every month. Whereas in Cape Town, if you use anywhere between 0 and 4.2 kiloliters, then that's how much you pay per kiloliter. But as you start using more water, look what they do to the price. You see how they make it more expensive? So in Cape Town, you have to be a little bit more cautious or careful, because if you start using too much water, they start increasing the price. Okay? Whereas in Johannesburg, they only charge you one amount, whether you use a small amount of water or a large amount of water. Okay? So explain why the tariff system is beneficial to homeowners. We can just say something like, the price remains constant no matter how much water is used. What I don't like about that, like let's say we live in Johannesburg, which many of you watching this do, so shout out to you if you live in Johannesburg, which is like a lot of you. I don't live in Johannesburg, I live in Cape Town, but I know from my analytics of people who watch the videos, most of it is actually in the Gauteng, Johannesburg area. So, what was I going to say? Oh, what I don't like about this is that, let's say you live in Johannesburg and you go on holiday. You and your family go on holiday for 3 months, okay? Now, let's say you go travel overseas and so you're still going to be charged 220. Let's say your house is less than 300. You're still going to be charged no matter what. Whereas in Cape Town, if you use 0, then you're going to pay 0 because it says here 16.03 Rand per kiloliter. But if you don't use anything, then you don't pay for anything. You see, so I guess there is pros or positives and negatives for both scenarios. The first thing I want to mention is that these questions are going to carry on, okay? So here we've got 2 questions. On the next slide, we're going to have 2 questions. And then on this slide, we're going to have a question. Okay? So 5 questions in total. So let's begin. Let's try to understand what this table is all about. So it says table 4 shows the number of people per province working in 2 workplaces. Okay, so obviously from COVID, I guess it's one of these types of things. So you know, during COVID, a lot of people had to work from home, okay? So it says here, work from home. So that's how many people in tens of thousands. Okay, so that's 21.7. Jesus, probably like 210,000 people, like 217,000 people. Okay, and then these people are in the usual workplace. So they are still working from their normal office, and they're not working from home. Okay, so you understand that? This was in the last quarter of 2020, and this was in the first quarter of 2021. Okay, so I hope that you understand that. Let me just make sure that you understand that. We also have different provinces over here. So for example, in the Free State, it was 56.9 who were in the usual workplace, and then 3.2 were working from home. Now remember, that's not 3.2 people. They said in 10,000. So that's 3.2 times 10,000. So that's actually 32,000 people. Okay? And then this just gives the total of those two numbers. And then here, this would just be in the first quarter of 2021, whereas this is the last quarter of 2020. Okay. So the first question says, show how the total value of 83.5 for South Africa was calculated. They're pretty much wanting to know how did they calculate this value? Well, that would just be the total from all of these numbers. Now you're going to have to go show that. So you're going to have to say 18.4 plus 5.6 plus 0.5 plus 2.9, and all of that added together is where they got 83.5. Next one. Give one reason why the values in the table will differ from the actual workplace values. Well, okay, so what they mean is the following. So for example, here, let's say here, that says that working from home, 7.2. So if you had to work that out in 10,000s, you would say 7.2 times 10,000, and that's going to give you 72,000. Okay. If you take, for example, this one over here, 9.4 multiplied by 10,000, that's going to give you 94,000. But now that's a bit weird. Let's say, for example, this one, 2.4 multiplied by 10,000 is going to be 24,000. So are you telling me that when they counted the people, it was exactly 72,000, exactly 94,000, and exactly 24,000? So it couldn't maybe be 24,013 people. How is it that it's just these perfect zeros at the end? Like, was it just absolutely perfect? Like, wasn't there maybe like 24,001 people but for some of them? Or was it just always 000? So for example, 6.3 times 10,000, 63,000. How is it that it's perfect like that? Well, it wasn't perfect, but that's what happens when you use rounding off. Let's say there was, when they went and they counted, there were 17,036 people. Now, if you wanted to round that off to the nearest 10,000, you would divide that by 10,000, and what that would give you would be 1.7036. But they rounded all of these decimals to one place, so it would only say 1.7. And so you see how that part over there gets eliminated? So they said here, give one reason why the values in the table will differ from the actual workplace values. And you can just say rounding off. Issues. This question says, write down the number of people who worked at their usual workplace, okay, so UWP, in Gauteng in 2021. Okay, so it's Gauteng in 2021, so that means it's only this area over here. And they said UWP, so we go to UWP, which is there. So that'll be 365.9, but remember that that is in 10,000s. So you can say 365.9, 10,000. Or you could say 365.9 multiplied by 10,000, and that's going to give you 3659123. 3,659,000. Okay? Then this question over here says, give one example of a job that cannot be done by working from home. Okay, so there's many jobs that cannot be done by working from home. For example, a policeman. I mean, that'll be pretty awkward, right? If a policeman gets called because there's an armed robbery taking place and the guy's like, sorry, I'm working from home today. It's not really going to work. Okay, so that's one. Policeman, fireman. You know, there's loads of different examples that you could think of. Moving on to this question, says calculate the mean. What does the mean stand for? It means the average number of people in the WFH category for South Africa. So I don't see South Africa on the list. Remember, guys, this is all South Africa. Okay? So it says calculate the average number of people in the WFH for South Africa. Now be careful, in the last quarter of 2020. So that's the last quarter of 2020. WFH, so we are going to go look at the average of all of these numbers over here, okay? Because they said WFH, last quarter 2020, and the whole of South Africa. So what you do to find the mean is you go add up all of those numbers, okay? So 21.7, 7,2, 0,5, 3,2, 9,4, 2,4. So I'm just plussing all of these numbers together. I'm running out of space. Okay, if you don't mind, I'm just going to add the numbers in the front. So 36,6, 5,8, and 6,3. You would then add all of that together and divide by how many numbers there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 makes sense because there's 9 provinces. And then if you had to go work this all out, we should get. Now, by the way, a lot of you, when you type this in on your calculator, you type it in incorrectly. You type it in like this on your calculator. You say, you type in all the numbers. So let's say like 21,7, 7,2, and then there would be a whole bunch of numbers over here. And then you would say the last number, which is 6.3. And then you just say divide by 9. Now, did you know, according to BODMAS, remember earlier grades we learned about brackets, division, multiplication, what you're doing there is you're saying that 6.3 must divide by 9, and then whatever that answer is, just add it to all of these numbers. But if you want to do this properly, then you should if you want to do it like that, you should put a bracket around all of those numbers. Okay, then it takes all of the numbers and adds them together and then divides that by 9. Okay, that's a mistake I see a lot. Your other option is to press the divide sign on your calculator. Well, not the divide sign, but you know that little button that looks like this on your calculator, and it will make a line. Then you can start typing all of these numbers at the top, and then at the bottom you can just put a 9. Okay, so. And then if we round that to 2 decimal places, it'll be 10,34. And then remember that isn't 10,34 people. I mean, that would be pretty sad if that's how many people there were. You have to say 10,000 like that. Okay, or you can times it by 10,000 and actually get the proper value. I just want to make mention that these questions are going to carry on. So here we have the first question. Then there's a second one, a third one, and a fourth one. Okay, let's start. So let's try to understand this. It says South Africa's unemployment rate increased from 34.4% in quarter 2 to 34.9% in quarter 3. Okay, let me just explain that. So in 1 year, there are 4 quarters, right? You know, like January up to March, April up to June, July up to September, and then October to the end of the year. So every 3 months is a quarter. So in quarter 2, which would typically be like April up to June, it was 34.4%. That's the percentage of people that were unemployed. So out of all of the people that could work, 34.4% are not working. They're unemployed. And in quarter 3, So from July to like September, that increased to 34.9% of the population. They then tell us here that the number of unemployed people in quarter 2 is 7.6 million. Okay, so remember that's the 34.4%, which is 183,000 less than in quarter 3. Okay, so if we wanted, so let's go ahead. So the graph below indicates the unemployment rate for the different genders and the total for South Africa for the first 3 quarters. Okay, so let's quickly try to make sense of all of this. Okay, so for example, in quarter 1, okay, so that's like January up to March, for example. Okay, January, February, March. If you look at the key here, the dark gray, that's men. So about 30, I don't know, like 31.5. I'm just guessing for now. About 31.5% of all of the men who could work were unemployed. Okay, they're not talking about children who go to school because they're not supposed to be working. It's illegal for them to work. They're talking about people who can work. Okay, so over the age of 18 and less than 65 or whatever the retirement age is. So all of those people, out of all of those men, 31.5% of them are unemployed. For the women, which is up to here, 34% of them are unemployed. And then for the whole of South Africa, out of all of the people that could work, about nearly 32.5 or 33%, the whole of South Africa cannot work or are unemployed. Okay, so, and then this is just quarter 2, which is like April, May, June. And then this is like July, August, September. Okay, so it says write down the quarter which shows the highest rate of unemployed men. So we're only looking at the grey. So there's that one, and that one. Which one's the longest? It's this one over here. So we will say quarter 3. Quarter 3. This question says calculate the number of unemployed people in quarter 3. Now they don't say men or women. So what they mean is both. Well, I guess it's actually a pretty easy question, not by having to look here, but by just looking at this part over here. It says that the number of unemployed people in quarter 2 is 7.6 million people, which is 183,000 less than what there was in quarter 3. So in quarter 2, there's this many. So how would you work out the total for quarter 3? Well, if you just read the sentence very carefully, they're saying that in quarter 2, it was 7.6 million. Okay, so let's write that down. Quarter 2, 7.6 million, which is that. Okay, now they're saying that that is less than in quarter 3. So which one was more, quarter 2 or quarter 3? You might want to pause, just think about that. Quarter 3 is going to be even more. So quarter 3 is going to be 7,600,000. Which is 7.6 million, and then you're going to add 183,000 to that. And that's going to give you 7,783,000. This question says, determine the increase in percentage of unemployed women from quarter 1 to quarter 3. Okay, so we're looking at the women. So the women are with like the lines. So it's not these dots, and it's not the gray one. It's these ones over here. Okay, so in quarter 1, that is 34%. Then quarter 3, it is. Geez, now how are we supposed to just read this off? Okay, so remember, be as accurate as you can be, but on the memo, they do give you a range of answers that you can have. And I'll tell you what that is shortly, but let's try to see how accurate we can do this. So if we zoom in, by the way, guys, you must always take your pocket microscopes in with you into your exams. Just remember those, hey? They should hand them out to you before you enter each of your exams. Okay, I'm just talking nonsense. Imagine we had like special microscopes that they gave us. Oh, it'll be funny. Okay, I typically find these types of things more funny than some people, so I do apologize. But I know for sure there are some people sitting right now chuckling up in their bedroom while watching this, or wherever you're watching this. You got my sense of humor. I love it. Okay, so moving on to more serious things. So what we got to try to do is just figure out, so if this is at 36% and this is at 38%, we got to try to figure out how big each of these little columns would be. Okay, I had to zoom back because this silly PowerPoint won't let me write if I'm in the zoomed in phase. But you might need to just take a bit of time and just to realize that this would be 36.4, this would be 36.8, this would be 37.2, 37.6, and 38. That's quite challenging. I don't like the interval that they used there. That's not that easy to figure out, actually. Usually they make it a bit easier. They use either like 0.5 or 0.2. But to use 0.4, come on, bro. It's a bit weird. So, okay, so this line, so this would be 36.4, 36.8, 37.2, and this would be 37.6. So this would probably be like 37.3, 37.3. Okay? Right. So it says determine the increase in percentage from quarter 1 to quarter 3. So from quarter 1 to quarter 3, so you're obviously going to subtract those. So you'd have, in the exam, you'd have to write down quarter 1, 34%. Quarter 3, as verified by my pocket microscope, 37.3%. And so the difference, it's not that funny, Kevin. The difference would be 37.3 take away 34. And so that would be 3.3%. Now, on the memo, they accept anywhere from 37.3 up to 37.5. Okay, so in your final answer over here, that 37.3 to 37.5, that's the range that they accept over there, and so that could cause you to have a different answer over here. So the answers that you're allowed to have there would either be 3.3 up to 3.5. So if your answer is anywhere between 3.3 and 3.5, you're good. If not, then I think you need to get your microscope recalibrated. Okay, I promise I won't make that joke again. Okay, so now this question says that the unemployment rate for quarter 2 is 34.4. So that would be the RSA. So that would be this. That they're saying this is 34.4. I agree with that, because if you look down here, we said that's 34. And we said that each of these is 0.4. So that means that this bar here would be 34.4. So that actually makes perfect sense. Okay. So it says determine the number of people employed in South Africa during quarter 2. Okay, so we're definitely going to have to use information up here because now we're talking about the number of people. So, sure, this is interesting. Oh, this is actually a really good one. Okay, so let's do this, guys. We can do this. So they said that the unemployment rate in quarter 2 is 34.4%. 34.4% unemployed. Now, we also know how many people that would be. That's 7.6 million people. Or let's just say 7,600,000. Okay, so that's that. Right? Because they said 34.4% in quarter 2 are unemployed. And then here they're saying the number of unemployed people in quarter 2 is 7.6 million. So these two go together. You agree with me? Perfect. It says determine the number of people that are employed in South Africa. Okay, well, there's a number of ways we could do this, but I think one of the ways is I want you to quickly work this out for me, will you? So, what percentage of people will be employed in quarter 2? Well, if 34.4% are unemployed, then how many will be employed? See if you can work that out. Well done if you realize that you can just say that the employed will just be 100, take away 34.4. Because if 34.4% are unemployed, then the difference between that and 100 must be employed. Okay, so 65.6% are employed. Okay, I hope that part makes sense. It should be fairly straightforward for most of you that if 34.4% of the people are unemployed, then 65.6% of them are employed. So like if 34.4% don't have jobs, then 65.6% do have jobs. Okay? Remember, they're not talking about children and they're not talking about like older people who are above 65. They're talking about all the people who can work. Okay? That's what we're talking about here. So what we can now do is we can say, okay, if 34.4% is equal to 7,600,000, because that's what we found out over here, then what would 1% be? Well, how can I change this to 1%? What could I divide this by to make it 1%? Well, what if I gave you the number 20? Then what could I divide this by so that the answer would be equal to 1? Well, you can divide it by itself, right? Because 20 divided by 20 is 1, or 5 divided by 5 is 1, or 2 divided by 2 is 1. So if I want to change this 34.4 to 1%, then I can just divide this by 34.4. But what I do to the one side in mathematics, I have to do to the other side. Otherwise, it's illegal. So if you say 34.4 divided by 34.4, you're going to end up with 1. And then we still have the percentage sign over there. And then if you divide this part over here, okay, now I'm not going to round off just yet. That's going to give us 220930.2326. So that's what 1% will be. So then what percentage did we say were employed? We said 65.6%. Okay. So if 1% is this many people, then what would 65.6% be? Well, then 65.6% would just be equal to 220930.2326 multiplied by 65.6. Does that make sense? If 1% is this many people, then if you want to know what 65.6% would be, you would just multiply that by 65.6. I hope that makes sense for you. And if you do that, you should end up with 144,930,23.26. It's like a little bit more than 14 million people. But now I'm sorry if I've offended anyone by saying that someone was 0.26 of a person. Of course we can't have that many people, so we'll just round that one to the nearest or down, and that would be that many people. And I really hope that part made sense. Like, we knew that 34.4% was that many people. So to get this to 1, I wanted to know in 1% how many people would there be. Because then if I have 65.6%, I can just multiply that by 65.6. You might have to pause and just think about that a bit, but I hope that you understood that one. Okay, and so that's the end of that question. Here are all the questions that we will do in this question. So we've got this one over here, this one over here, and this one over here. But I'm going to split them up onto different pages just to make it a bit easier. Okay, so Mr. Lowe, who is 53 years old, earned an annual taxable income of 495,602 Rand for the year ending 28 February 2022. He does not contribute to medical aid. Okay, so do you understand all of that? The guy's 53 years old, and this is how much money he earned for a specific year. Okay, remember that we know that in real life we like to go from January to December, right? But in the business world, it doesn't work like that. The year ends at the end of February. Okay, so use the above information to answer the questions that follow. The following formula can be used to calculate the annual tax payable before the rebate. Use this formula to calculate Mr. Lowe's tax payable before the rebate. Okay, so this one's going to be very easy. We're literally just going to go plug numbers into this formula, and so that's going to be 115,762 plus, then they said 36%, so we can just say 36% multiplied brackets. So annual taxable income, there it is. So we can just go put 495,602 take away 4,88700. So you could go type this in on your calculator exactly like that. Some of you are going to have a few problems over here. You have different options. You could either say 36, and then on your calculator you can find the percentage button, or you can say 36 divided by 100, which is 0,36. So you could say 0,36 over there. It's up to you. But if you do all of that correctly, you should end up with a value of, and remember to just type it exactly like this, okay? So on the Casio, for example, calculator, you're going to open up a bracket over there. You're going to say 36, and then you're going to say percentage, and then you're going to open up another bracket. You're going to close that bracket, which is the opposite of this one, and then you need to close the other bracket, which is the opposite of that one. Okay, so you'll type it in just like that, and so this should give us 118,246.72. 118,246.72. Okay, so now we're moving on to this question. So it says that Mr. Lowe feels that the monthly table is easier to calculate his monthly tax. So what he means by that is he thinks that using this table is easier than using this formula that we did in the previous question. Okay, so it says that, okay, so they give us the table, then they say that there's a monthly rebate, and then they say verify, showing all calculations for 6 marks, whether his monthly tax will be correct according to the monthly table. So they've worded the question a little bit weirdly, but what they pretty much want us to do is to see whether this formula is giving us the same value as what the table will tell us. They're trying to see if those two are the same. Okay, so in the previous question, we worked out his annual, that means per year, right? Per year. And that gave us this amount over here. And we didn't use any rebates. Why do I know that? It says before any rebate. Okay, so what I say for this question is, let's just ignore any rebates. So what I'm trying to say is, if we're not using any rebates in this formula, then let's just not use any rebates when we use the table. Then it will be an equal comparison. If you do want to use rebates, then you're going to have to use a rebate for this, and then you must also use a rebate for that. Then it's okay. On the memo, they actually show many different options, and one of them is using the rebate, and one of them is without using a rebate. So I'm not going to use the rebate in this question. Okay, so in the previous question, we worked out that this was his annual tax. Let's quickly see what that would be per month. So using the formula, we found out that the annual was 118,246,72. So what would that be per month? Well, we're just going to divide that by 12. Okay, and if you do that, we get 9853.89 if you round to 2 decimal places. That would be how much tax there would be per month. That's before any rebate, okay? That's before any rebate. Okay, so that's what the formula tells us. Now let's see what the table will tell us. So what we do is we need to first know where Mr. Lowe would find himself on that table. We don't know what his monthly income is. However, we do know that his annual income, his yearly income, is 495,602. So his annual income is 495,602. Okay, but this is a monthly income, so we need to just divide that by 12 to get his monthly income. So monthly, so we can just say 495,602, divide that by 12, and that'll give us 41,300.17. So that's the monthly, so we can say per month. That is what this guy earns per month. So where would that put you? Would that put us into this row, or this row? Well, 41,300 is somewhere between these two numbers. So we're definitely over here. Now, if we look at the previous slide, we know that Mr. Lowe is 53 years old. Okay, so it's definitely under 65. So what would the monthly tax would be? 8491. So monthly tax would be 8491, and that's also before any rebate. So you see how both of them I did before rebate. So that's fair, right? You can compare them because they're both before rebate. If you want to include the rebate, that's okay. Then you're just going to subtract. You're going to take this number and you're going to subtract 1368, but then you're going to have to do it with this one as well. So it's going to be equal anyways. So are these two numbers the same? No, they are not. So this means that the formula and the table, they're not giving the same value. So it says here, verify whether his monthly tax will be correct. So we can say no, monthly tax is not correct. Okay, this question. Write down the probability of selecting a monthly tax amount of 8473 for a person over 75 years from this monthly tax table. Okay, so what is the chance that someone can pay 8473 if they're over 75? So if you go over 75, the only taxes that you could pay would be this, this, or this. You're never going to be able to pay 8473. That's only if you were there and you were under 65. So what is the probability that someone over 75 would pay that? It is 0. So the answer is 0. This is the question we're going to be looking at. Now, I know you can't see much because there's so many things on the screen, but I just wanted to show you, for those of you that can see everything, maybe you've got a nice, good quality setting. These are all the questions we're going to do, but I'm going to split them up into different pages so that it's easier for us to see. Okay, so there's going to be this question, this question, this question, this question, this question, and this one, and lastly, that one over there. So 7 questions that we are going to attempt. Okay, so it says the pie charts on Annexure B, so this is Annexure B with the pie chart, compare the 5 best-selling vehicles in South Africa, America, and Canada in the year 2021. So let's just quickly make sure we understand this. So this is South Africa, this is America, and this is Canada. Okay? I swear there's a song that my brother often plays. This is America. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dreaming things. Anyways, so in South Africa, there are 5 main types of cars that they're looking at. They're looking at the Toyota RAV4. Now, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I really struggle to think about, maybe I'm being a bit of a Karen here, I'm busy complaining. But, okay, I guess that's easy to see. That's this one. That's this one, and okay, it's not too bad. My bad. Sorry, guys. And then the Ford Ranger. Okay, so they're looking at 5 different types of vehicles in South Africa, and then they're looking at 5 different vehicles in America and in Canada. Okay, so that's the basics of what this question is all about. And then here they tell us the total number of vehicles sold. Well, that would obviously just be the total of all of those added together. So, first question. Write down in words the total number of vehicles sold in America. So that's this one. Okay, so that is a big number. So it's going to be... So do they really want to see this? Write down in words. My goodness, okay. We all have 6 hours to do this. So, 2,584,000. So, 2,584,000 176. 176. Okay, I probably should have added the words and. I knew something sounded a bit weird. 2,584,176. And 84,176. Okay, so it's sometimes better to just say the word out yourself and then just go write that out. Okay, next one. Express as a ratio in the form of something, 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 the number of Toyota RAV4s sold in America, Canada, and South Africa, respectively. So when they say respectively, it means in that order, please. So the Toyota RAV4s, they are the grey ones, okay? So it's this, this, and this. Now they want us to do it as America first, always. So cliche. So it's going to be this one. So we're going to say 407739. And then what's next? Canada. Ah, okay. So they're making us last. Nice. It's cool. And then Canada is 61,934. And then South Africa. Where are we? Where's our RAV4s? These ones are 36. Wow, there's a lot of RAV4s in America. That's crazy. This is America. It's definitely a song. Guns in my area. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so 36,085. Okay, and then obviously you don't need to go simplify that because it's just going to be a mission. It doesn't simplify. That is the final answer. Okay, so here's the next one. Write down the median. What does median mean? It means like the middle. Write down the median number of the best-selling vehicles in South Africa. So in South Africa, we need to look at all of these different numbers, and we need to pretty much arrange them from smallest to largest, because remember, that's how you do median and all of those things. So the smallest number for South Africa is that one there, so 16,426. Next smallest is this one, 18,235. Next smallest is this one, 19,077. And then 21,887 and 36085. Okay, now looking at that, which number's in the middle? Well, that's 19,077. So that would be your or our final answer. This one here. All right, next question says, determine the number of Ford F-Series sold in Canada. So in Canada, the Ford F-Series is this block with all the little dots. Okay, so that's this one over here. Ah, haha. So of course there's nothing there. But what we know is that, because they're being sneaky, so what we know is that the total is 357,243. So we know how much these add up to, and then we can use that to find out how much would be over here. So does that make sense? So let's go add these numbers together quickly. So we could say 51684 plus 53757 plus 934 plus 73467. If we go add all of that together, we're going to get 240,842. Okay, now we know that the total is 357,243. So we could then say 3, like, I don't know, maybe, in case some of you aren't understanding this, like if we have the total is 357,243, and we know that the total from these cars is 240,842. So then this leftover piece over here would be the the Ford F-Series. So what we can then say is 357,243 take away 240,842, and that would give us 116,401 Ford F-Series cars. I'm just going to say Ford F-Series. Okay, so 116,401. Alright, so this question says that the interquartile range, okay, what does interquartile range mean again? It means, where can I write this? Let's say interquartile range, so IQR, is quarter 3 minus quarter 1. Okay, so it says for the top 10 vehicles in South Africa is that. And the value of quartile 1 is that. Calculate the value of quartile 3. Okay, well that's not going to be too difficult. Wait, do they give us everything? Quartile 1, the interquartile range. Yeah, so we know that IQR, interquartile range, is Q3 take away Q1. So let's just go full everything in. So they told us that the interquartile range, let me just write this neatly for us. Okay, the interquartile range is 7669. So we go full that in, 7669 in that one's place equals. Now we don't know what Q3 is, but we know that Q1, they did tell us that, is 11408. Now we just use mathematics. Now, I don't know how comfortable you are with this, but every teacher has their own way of showing this. But pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and it's going to end up going to the other side. Okay? So I don't know how you like to do that. Some teachers, they like to plus 11408, and then they do it to both sides. Some students don't like it that way. I sometimes don't show it that way. Sometimes I do. But what you're going to end up getting is that Q3 is going to be 11408 adding with 7669. Okay? And if you had to work that out, you should get... And by the way, if you're looking for Q3, some teachers are like, yo, you have to move everything. If you're looking for Q3, then you have to put Q3 on the left-hand side. It's not true. You can put it on any side, to be very honest. It doesn't really matter. As long as when you move it to the other side, you change it from a positive to a negative or a negative to a positive. Okay? And so the answer you should get would be 19077. Okay, so this question for 6 marks. Nice. The inflation rate in America for 2021 was 7%. Well, that's quite high for America. And in 2020, it was 1.4. That's normal for America. The price, okay, so the inflation rate, blah, 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 blah. The price of a Ford F-Series vehicle in 2022 is that amount over there. It is stated that the price of the Ford in 2019 was more than 29,800. Verify showing all calculations whether the statement is valid. Okay, so what we can do is, let's just say the car is worth 29,800. Okay, so the car is 29,800 in 2019. I know they said that it was more, but let's just pretend it is 29,800. Okay, then how much would it be in 2020? Okay, well, let's say at the end of 2019, that was the price. Then the year 2020 arrives. And what is the inflation rate? 1.4%. So that means that this price needs to increase by 1.4%. So you can do that. I mean, I've seen so many different formulas that you can use, that teachers like to use. I'm not going to force you to use a specific method, but you need to pretty much increase this price by 1.4%. Okay? So there's lots of different fancy formulas that teachers show, but I like to keep it basic. So I'm just going to work out what 1.4% of that amount is. So 1.4% multiplied by 29,800. Now, if you can type it with a percentage sign on your calculator, but if you want to change it to away from a percentage, then you would say 1.4 over 100. Okay, so you can choose either to do it like that or like that. Okay, and if you work that out, you get 417.2. So then you need to add that onto that amount over there. Okay, and that's going to give you 30,217.20. Now that's what the car would be worth in 2021. How does that make sense? Well, in 2019, this was the value of the car. Then throughout, so at the end of 2019, this was the value of the car. Then the whole of 2020, the price increased by 1.4%. So when the car arrives in 2021, it's now going to be worth 30,217.20. Okay, at the beginning of 2021. Then in the year 2021, it's going to undergo a 7% increase because that's the inflation for 2021. So let's go work out what that would become. So you could say 7 over 100 times by the new price now, which is this. Or you could say 7%, it doesn't matter. And that's 2115.20. But then you have to add these two together to see what the new price would be. And that's going to give us 32332.40. And that would be the price going into 2022. Okay? Because this is the price in 2021. Then it has a 7% increase during that year. So when it gets to 2022, that would be the price. And that is exactly, or pretty much exactly what they said the price was in 2022. So it is stated that the price of the Ford was more than 29,800 in 2019. Well, no, that is not true, because what we did in our calculation is we pretended that the price is 29,800. We didn't say it's more, we said it is 29,800. And when we did our calculations, we got to exactly that amount over there. So the price in 2019 was not more than 29,800. It was exactly 29,800. So the statement is not valid, because we just proved that the price in 2019 was exactly 29,800. It wasn't more. And this question says, determine as a percentage the probability of purchasing a Ram pickup in America. Okay, so obviously not taking the cost or anything into account. So if you go to America, this one over here. Now, how many cars are there in America? Well, there's 2.5 million, or a little bit more than 2.5 million. So we know that probability is always out of a total. So 2584, 176. Now, how many Rams are there? Well, the Ram is the white, this white part over here. And so that's going to be 569,388. Okay, that's how you work out probability. And then to turn it into a percentage, we will just multiply with 100. And let's see what you get. So you should get about 22, and then to 2 decimal places, 0.03%. The first thing I want to mention is that these questions are going to carry on. So we've got the first question down at the bottom here, and then we have another one and another one. So that's a third one, a fourth question, and lastly a fifth question. Okay, so I've split them all up, and let's get started. So let's try to understand what this question's all about. They tell us that during the 2008 to 2012 period, South Africa recorded an average growth rate of just over 2% due to global economic recession. Okay, Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape collectively contributed a significant portion. The graph below shows the contributions of these three provinces towards the different sectors. Okay, so let's try to understand what they're telling us here. Okay, so on this graph, we've got Gauteng, Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal. Okay, so you can just use these keys to identify which one is which. Now, we've got different things here. We've got finance. So, for example, if you want to read off the finance values, then it would be this dot, and this dot over here. And then there's transport, which would be those three dots over there. Wholesale, which would be those three. And then agriculture, which you could read off with those dots over there. And then on the y-axis here, we've got the percentages. Okay, so here's the first question down here. It says, write down the province that contributed the most to the wholesale sector. So we'll go to the wholesale sector, and we'll look for these three over here. And the highest one is this one here, which is the little dotted things over here. So that would be this one, the Western Cape. So we can just say here, Western Cape. Okay, now we're going to have a look at this question over here. So it says the total amount contributed by the three provinces to agriculture was 8.3 billion rand. Determine which part of this amount was the Western Cape. Okay, so let's have a look at agriculture. And let's just go see how much each place contributed. So if we look at the Western Cape is the dotted, the little dots. So it lands up over there. If you read it off over here, it's 4%. Okay, so the Western Cape was 4%. If we look at, now you can't just go say 4% of 8.3 billion. I know that might be a little bit That's tempting, but just hear me out. Let's just quickly go look at the others quickly. So let's quickly see the Gauteng. Gauteng is this one over here with the little dotted. Okay, so it's also got the dotted lines. So that's probably over there, which is, if we read that off, whoops, that would be around 3%, right? Okay, so Gauteng would be 3%. Okay, and then if we look at KwaZulu-Natal, that line also ends over there, so that's going to be, I'm just going to say KZN, and that's also going to be 4%. Okay, so remember that these percentages are the percentage of the total country's growth. They're not the percentages of agriculture. So that's why we can't just say, you can't just say that the Western Cape is going to be 4% of 8.3 billion, because then the Gauteng would only be 3% and KZN would only be 4%, so that wouldn't even add up to 100%. So what you rather got to do is the following. Think about it like this. There was 8.3 billion rand for agriculture. Okay, so let's say agriculture. Okay, and there were three main provinces that contributed. There was KZN, there was the Western Cape, and there was Gauteng. Now, Western Cape is 4%, Gauteng was 3%, and KZN was 4%. Okay, so what we can then do, and we know that the total of all of those three was 8.3 billion, okay? All three of those was 8.3 billion. So how many parts, the way you can think about this is how many parts are there? Well, there's 4 parts, and 3 parts. So we can say 4% plus 3% plus another 4%, and that's going to give us 11%. So that's the total parts. Now, what part is the Western Cape? Well, that would be 4, okay? So we could say 4 out of 11. That's the Western Cape's contribution. And we could see what, and we know that we could then multiply that by 8.3 billion. So 300, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can see what does 4 parts out of the total of 11 parts give us. And if you had to go work that out, it's going to give us 301, 818, and then 1818. Okay, so that is how much the Western Cape contributed. So it's a little bit more than 3 billion rand. Now that makes sense. If the total is 8.3 billion for agriculture and the Western Cape was nearly half, it was just a little bit less than half. So it makes sense that it's about 3 billion rand that was contributed by the Western Cape. Okay, let's go to the next part. Here's the next question over here. So it says, identify the sector in which KwaZulu-Natal made a 12% contribution. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the 12% over here, and we're just going to look at KwaZulu-Natal, which is the solid black line, and you're going to see where, so if you look over there, for example, that's for finance, that's more than 12%. If you look at the transport industry, KZN is exactly on the 12% part. So you see that? It's exactly on the 12%, and so that would be transport. So we're going to say here, transport. Next one, name the sector that has the largest range. Okay, remember, range is always your highest minus your lowest. So let me show you an example. If we look, for example, at finance, your lowest percentage is this one over here, which is about, what would we say that is? About 15%, eh? Yeah, that would be 15%. That would be your lowest. Your highest would be this one up here, which would be at 23%. Okay, so if you had to, let's go have a look. For finance, you would say 23%, take away 15%, and that would give you 8%. If you look at the others, their difference is not going to be as large. Like if you look at the transport sector, here's the highest, and there's the lowest. See, so that difference is not that high. If you look at wholesale, if you look at the highest and you look at the lowest, there's not much of a difference. And then if you look at agriculture, there's the highest and there's the lowest. And if you look at the difference, there's not much over there. Okay, so the answer is definitely going to be finance. Okay, now for this question, it says, name one province that made the most significant contribution towards the growth of most of the sectors. Let me just read that again. Name one province that made the most significant contribution towards the growth of most of the sectors. So what I would look for here is, let's just quickly try to understand this. So, okay, so we see with finance, who's the largest contributor? It's the Western Cape. Okay, you can see it's the highest. If you look at transport, who's the highest? Gauteng. No, KwaZulu-Natal, sorry. So KZN is the highest over here. The Western Cape is the highest over here. If you look at wholesale, the Western Cape is the top over there. And then if you look at this last one, agriculture, both the Western Cape and KZN are at the top over there. So then I would say, of course you could go calculate the numbers and stuff, but it looks like it's clearly going to be the Western Cape, because the Western Cape was the top of most of them. Okay, so we could say the Western Cape. So with this question, we've got some questions over here, but then remember that the questions do carry on to the next slide over there, and then also over there. Okay, so let's start and let's try to understand this. So it says, Ryan is a South African citizen who owns a company in South Africa and would like to buy shares in a company in Canada. Okay. So table 6 shows the exchange rate for 5 countries on 17 March 2022. So first question, well, let's first just try to understand. So I'm not really going to look at this column right now. I'm going to focus on this column. It says ZAR, which is South African Rand. So it says how many South African rands per unit. So how does this work? Let's say you would like to buy €1, then you will have to spend 16 Rand and 48 cents if you want to buy €1, or 16,480. I know it's got decimals and stuff, but yeah, so it's going to be 16,480 per unit. If you would like to buy let's say you would like to buy a British pound, then you would have to pay 19 Rand and 19.662 Rand to get 1 British pound. If you would like to buy 1 Canadian dollar, you would pay 11 Rand 0.785. And then if you would like to buy if you would maybe like to buy a Japanese yen, then you would only have to pay 0.12565 to get 1 Japanese yen. Okay, so the first question says, identify the currency which is the weakest against the Rand. So, okay, so if you look carefully, to be able to buy a euro, you're going to have to pay 16 Rand, okay, a little bit more than 16 Rand. To be able to buy a British pound, you're going to have to pay nearly 20 Rand. To be able to buy a Canadian dollar, you're going to have to pay nearly 12 Rand, or 11,785. To buy a Russian ruble, you only have to pay 0.14. I'm just going to ignore those decimals for now. And to buy a Japanese yen, you only have to pay 0.12. So which one is going to be cheaper for a South African to buy? Is it going to be the British pound? No, because to buy 1 British pound, you have to spend 19 Rand. But to buy a Japanese yen, you only have to spend 0.12565. So that would be easiest for a South African to buy, and so that would be called the weakest against the Rand. Okay, so we can say here Japanese yen. Now we're going to have a look at this question. So it says, show how the Russian ruble of that amount over there was determined. Now, I want us to spend a little bit of time on just how these values, or like, how does this number and this number relate, and what does this mean, and what does this mean? Okay, so give me your time. I'm going to do my best to try and explain it, okay? So, if you look at the name over here, this name is actually very important. So it says ZAR, so that means Rand, per unit. Now, whenever we use the word per in maths, in science, it means per one. So it means per 1 unit. So this sentence here, this phrase or whatever, it means how many rands will it cost, rands, per 1 unit. So it means that it will cost 16 rand, 16,480 rand per 1 euro, if you want to buy 1 euro. This one is 19,662 rand for 1 British pound. Okay, this one is 0.12565 if you want to buy 1 Japanese yen. Now, okay, so that's what that one means. Okay, it's rands per 1. Now this one is units per 1 ZAR. Remember, whenever they use the word per, it means 1. So what does this mean? It means that if you want to buy 1 rand, you're only going to have to spend this many euros. Okay, so you're only going to have to spend 0.060673 euro to get 1 rand per 1, to be able to buy 1 rand. What that means is that the euro is so strong that for them to be able to buy 1 of our rands, they only have to give us that many euros. They don't even have to give us 1 euro. They only have to give us 0.060673 euros, and they will be able to get 1 rand. Okay? So, once again, this one here is how many rands do you need to be able to buy 1, for example, euro, or 1 British pound, or 1 Japanese yen. And then this column over here is how many euros or British pounds or Japanese yen do you need to be able to buy 1 rand? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The next thing I want you to realize is that these two columns are complete opposites of each other. For example, this one says units per ZAR, this one says ZAR per unit. So they are opposites of each other. So mathematically, when things are opposites, the way that you can switch from the one to the other is by using 1 over. So what do I mean? If you say 1 over 0.060673, which is this one over here, go ahead, type that on the calculator, and see what happens. You would end up with 16,48. I'm not going to worry about all the other decimals. They might not be exact, but what you see is that you'll get this one. Now, if you say 1 over 16,480, then if you type that on the calculator, you would just go back to the other one and you would get 0.060673. So you see, well, maybe the decimals aren't exact, but you get the idea that these two columns are opposites of each other, and by using 1 over, it gives you the other one. So they say here in this question, show how the Russian ruble, so they're saying show how this amount was calculated. So we can just say 1 over this amount. So we could say 1 over 6.97481, and if you go type that on the calculator, you get 0.143373 ZAR. Okay, so that's all that you would have to show them for that question. Now, for this one over here, it says Ryan decides to invest okay, so it's pretty much just more than 1 million rand, so it's 1,230,000 in shares in a Canadian company. Okay, convert that into Canadian dollars. Okay, now some of you might be like, okay, now where do I even start? Now check this out. If you look here, it tells you that to be able to buy 1 Canadian dollar, you need to spend 11.785 rand, ZAR, per unit. So it means that it's 11.785 rand per 1 Canadian dollar. So we can say here that 1 Canadian dollar is going to cost 11 rand 0.785. Or 11,785, okay? So let me ask you a question. What if you had 40 rand? Let's say you have 40 Rand. Then how many, take a guess with me, how many Canadian dollars do you think you'd be able to buy? Think about it. They said that for every 1 Canadian dollar that you want to buy, you have to give them about 11 Rand. So if you have 40 Rand, how many Canadian dollars would you get? You'd get about 3, right? Maybe a little bit more than 3. How would you work that out though? You could say 40 divided by 11.785. And if you had to work that out, you would get about 3.39 Canadian dollars. Okay? So what if you now have 1.2 million Rand? Well, you're just going to do the same. You're going to say 1,230,000, and you're just going to divide that by 11.785. And if you had to do that, you end up with 104,369, and then let's round to 2 decimal places, 0.96 Canadian dollars. That's how many you would get. Okay, this question says, give one reason why you would motivate Ryan to invest in a Canadian company. I think the main reason is that the Canadian currency is stronger than the South African currency. So we could say the Canadian currency is stronger than the Rand. Another reason that they used on the memo is that it's good to diversify your income. It's good to diversify your income. What does that mean? It means that if all of your income is only South African, then if something happens in South Africa, where maybe, I don't know, something bad happens, or something happens where certain big companies go bankrupt or whatever, and because all of your money was coming from South Africa, suddenly your income is going to be affected. But if you have a little bit of income coming in from Canada, you've got a little bit of income coming in from Australia, you've got some coming in from America, then if something happens to one of those countries, well, at least then your money from the other places is still coming into your you're still earning money like that. So that is what we call diversifying. Okay, you might have heard certain people saying you shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket. It's the same idea. Okay, you'll hear people like Warren Buffett and all of these people saying that you mustn't only have one source of income. It's better to have multiple sources of income, so that if something happens to one of them, you're not going to be terribly affected. Okay. Here's a nice 8-mark question. Gotta love it. So it says, after 2 years and 8 months, Ryan sold his shares and received a final amount of 1.5 million, just more than 1.5. Okay, so remember, he originally invested 1,230,000, and then a few years later, it's now worth 1.5 million. So original, I don't know if we're going to need this amount, but let's just write it down. This is what he originally invested, and now the final is now worth 1,529,360, and that's okay. So that's what it became, because he invested, right? Ryan sold his shares and he receives a final amount of that. In South Africa, Ryan would have received an interest rate of 8.1% compounded annually for 2 years and 8 months. Ryan stated that he earned more than 14,000 return on his foreign investment compared to a potential South African investment. Verify showing all calculations whether Ryan's statement is valid. Okay, so in my opinion, this sentence over here has not been asked really well, so it might confuse some of you. It says, Ryan stated that he earned more than 14,000 returned compared to a potential. Okay, so what they mean is that, okay, so Ryan had 2 options, right? He had option 1. He could have kept his money in South Africa and he could have invested it in South Africa. So invest in South Africa. If he did that, he would have earned, they would have given him an interest rate of 8.1% per year, and then he would have invested for 2 years and 8 months. Okay? Option number 2 was that he invested in Canada. Now what Ryan is trying to tell us was that because he invested in Canada, he made 14,000 Rand more than what he would have made if he invested in South Africa. That's what the question's actually trying to ask us. So we need to see if Ryan's statement is valid. So let's go see what he would have made in South Africa. Okay, so let's go see. So he made 8.1%, and it was compounded, and it was annually, so that's per year. So he starts off with 1.2 million. Remember, that's the amount that he starts off with. Oh no, 123,000, which we did actually write up here. So let's see what he would have had after 1 year. So after 1 year, so you would say 123,000 multiplied by 8.1%. So you could say 8.1%, then you must use the percentage sign on your calculator, or you should say 8.1 over 100. Okay? And if you had to work that out, let's see what we get. 99,000 Rand, so that's how much interest he earned for that year. So how much money would he have in total? Well, you'll just add that to what he had in the beginning. So 123,000 plus 99,630, and that gives us, okay, just a bit more than 1.3 million. So 132,960. Okay, so that is how much money Ryan would have after 1 year. Now let's go see after 2 years. So after 2 year, so now we need to say 8.1% on this amount. Okay, so we're going to say 132,960, and now we're going to add 8% onto that. Okay, so for that year, the interest that he would have earned would be 107,700.03. Now we go to see how much he has in total, you add that to this amount over here. Okay, so I'm going to do the calculation up at the top there. And so we're going to say 132,960 plus 107,700.03, and that would give us, okay, about 1.4 million. So 143,730.03. Okay, now there's also this 8 months. Okay, now we have a little bit of a problem because this 8.1% is compounded annually, so that's a yearly interest rate. But we only have 8 months. So what are we going to do? Well, so to work out what fraction 8 months is for a whole year, you could say 8, for example, check this out. If it was 6 months and I asked you, what fraction of a year is that? Many of you would be comfortable to say that that's half. The way that you actually calculate half is you would say 6 months out of a total of 12 months. You could type that in the calculator and it would say a half. So what we can do now for 8 months is we could say 8 months out of 12. If you type that on the calculator, you're going to get 2/3. So that means 8 months is the same as 2/3 of a year. So what we can do now is we could say, okay, so this is the amount of money that we had after 2 years. So we could say 8.1% multiplied by that amount. Okay, but then you're going to multiply that by 2/3. What that does is it just tells this interest rate that it's not a full year, it's only 2/3 of a year. Some of you might want to add that in the beginning if you want. It doesn't matter. Mathematically, you get the same answer. But maybe you want to tell this interest rate, hey, interest rate, just remember, it's not the full year. It's only 2/3 of a year. Okay? And, I mean, maybe you could even work that out now if you wanted to. Yeah, that actually works out quite nicely. And that's going to give you 5.4%. And so that is the percentage that we could now use with this amount over here. So you could now say 1437330.03 multiplied by 5.4%. And if you then had to go work that out, and remember for 5.4%, you can say 5.4 over 100. And so that's going to be 77,000 Rand. This is how much interest was earned for the 8 months. Okay, so to work out what the total amount would be then for the 2 years and 8 months, you're then just going to add this back onto this amount over here. Okay, so we're going to say 1437330.03 plus 77615.82. And if we had to go work this out, we get 151,4945.85. So that is how much money Ryan would have made, or would have grown his investment to, if he invested in South Africa. Okay, but instead he invested in Canada, and this is how much money it became. Okay, so he says that he made 14,000 rand more because he invested in Canada instead of in South Africa. So let's see if he's correct. So remember, in South Africa, his investment became 1514945.85. In Canada, his investment became 1529360. So we can see that in Canada he definitely made more. But was it 14,000 rand more like he said? Or let's go and subtract those two values and see if Mr. Ryan is being honest. Okay, and if we had to go work that out, we get about 14,000 rand. So Mr. Ryan is fairly honest. Well, he's really honest. 14,414.15. So is his statement valid? Yes. Statement is valid.